Well, it is 7 o'clock, and you know what that means. We can get our program started. Welcome. So good to see you all. Hello. Oh, I love that some of you are back. Jeanette's back 4 sessions, enjoying them all, and there's a few more to come, so stay tuned. Welcome in, everyone, whether you're joining us live, which is just lovely. Maybe you're watching the recording, even if you tuned in live, just as a little refresher, or maybe you use the recording as the doing time, right? So you're like, oh, let me listen again. Or maybe you're just tuning in for the recording and you couldn't join us live. However you found us, I'm just delighted that you're here. And for some of you like Andrea, this is your fourth. Sometimes it's your first. And we do hope you'll come back next month as well. We have so much to share. Our topic today is cleaning out the storage space. The storage space. So who has like a back room that's kind of become a storage catch-all? It maybe was supposed to be a spare bedroom or an office, a craft room, an exercise room, and it's turned into a storage space. Jump in the chat. Do you have that sort of a space? Is it just a closet or closets? Now, if it's closed, we're going to specifically talk about that in a future class, but any closet you've got, utility area, sure. Sometimes it truly is an attic, a basement, a garage, a storage unit that you may be actually paying a monthly fee on. Multi-purpose room, Barbara says. Yeah, for sure. So it's just sort of like these spaces where things just pile up. And it seems to happen quickly. But then when we start to look through the stuff, we're like, oh my gosh, this has been here a year, 5 years, 10 years. Maybe it's a box that you moved with and you've been in your space for a lot of years and you never even unpacked it. That's a very common situation. Yeah, glad you're here, David. First time in. Glad. Thanks for tuning in. And basement and study for sure. Jeanette says basement, absolutely. Sue says a room that was supposed to be a guest room, but is now piled high with stuff. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're definitely tuned into the right program. Delighted that you're here. Let's jump in with the strategies, because as much as we might say, okay, it feels great to know I'm not alone, that I too, just like everyone else here, is going, I've got too much stuff piled up in a space and I've got to go through it. But how? What do I do first? Where do I begin? Especially if it's feeling overwhelming, intimidating. You just don't know what you're going to find. You're not sure what to do with the stuff. How much time is this going to take? Is it going to be difficult? Do I even really want to do it? And then all of a sudden it's last on the list again. So how can we sort of ensure success? And I think I have a suggestion or two. Julie's making us all laugh with her comment in the chat. Spare bedroom recently featured in a Stephen King novel. And I could certainly see that for sure. Julie, thanks for making us giggle. Oh my gosh, lovely comments. All right, well, let's jump in with the strategies. So what are we going to do? It's enough to know that we have a challenge, but how are we going to solve it? So I think I have some answers for you. If we are just meeting for the first time, you probably would want to know a little bit about me. And as a refresher, for those of you that we've met before, my newest book is Keep This, Toss That, written in checklist format, published by Reader's Digest. And the part about storage spaces, again, checklist format, oversized font, a really fun and quick read. And that's there for you. So if you're wondering where am I getting the information, you may have seen me on morning TV. A while back, I was on like HGTV's Mission Organization, an episode there. That was a lot of fun, and other things along the way. But really, here we are together this evening through our awesome library, and we're figuring out what to do first. And I think what we do first is get out our phones. And we're not going to get out our phones to procrastinate by playing a game of Wordle or checking our email, but I would love for you to grab your phone and just snap a before photo. Can you do that? Super simple, really quick. I know it doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but I'm hoping this is an easy entry into this whole situation, because it's enough to know we've got the challenge, and then how do we go through the stuff? But then, as some of you were saying, but what do I do with all the stuff? So good news, there's resources coming, so hang on for that answer. But we're going to begin. My suggestion is a very strong suggestion. A recipe for success is snapping a before photo. What's really interesting is when you snap that before photo and then you kind of look at the photo, it almost looks different in a picture than it does in real life. And I think that we can start to formulate a little bit of a plan. It also is a very clear visual as to how you've spent your time and your energy. Because as you're working, it might feel like I just worked for 10 minutes. I just worked for an hour. I just worked for 10 hours. Hopefully not in a row. That sounds really tiring. But I don't know, does it really look any different? And you're like, I don't know. Maybe I'm not really making a difference here. And then we look at the before photo and you go, "Oh, I forgot that that was piled to the corner on that side. That went all the way up to the ceiling. I couldn't see that table. Oh, this is working. I'm making a difference. I can see it." So that before photo, I think, is very powerful. I think it's a great motivator because when I see it sort of, in color on a picture, it's like, does it really look like that? And then I can formulate a bit of a plan. So before photo, it's where we're going to begin. And then what's really interesting is you might think that I'm going to invite you to start making decisions about stuff right now. Keep versus toss. And guess what? We don't even have to go there right now. We're going to sort of ease into this whole thing by just doing a little inventory. Let's just see what's there. Now, if you recently put it there, you probably kind of remember. But if it's been a while, we may have forgotten what's there. And it can, again, be a little intimidating to start opening boxes and drawers and cabinets and looking on shelves and the floor too, which, good rule of thumb, nothing on the floor. It's such a trip hazard. But, this is why we're tidying up. And so as we're going through this space, if I automatically asked you, like, do you want this? Are you keeping it? Are you tossing it? You may not know the answer. Cute plush toys. We don't know the answer. And then we stop because we don't know the answer and we go do something else. So to hopefully ensure success for a very easy entry here, because maybe some of this stuff isn't yours, you might be working with a partner, a spouse, a family member, or other people that have left things in your home to store, and we don't know the answer right now. What we need to know is what's there. We don't need to inventory every paper clip, but let's just get a pretty general sense. So we look at a box, we look over here. And as we're doing that, I would love it if you could just start to group similar things together. On this corner of the wall, this is going to be like holiday stuff. Over here in the garage, that's gardening. We're going to put all the tools together over there. All the stuff for car care can go over here. All the outgrown toys can go over here. All the clothing and size, this can go over here. And we just sort of make these general categories, broad categories. And what that allows us to do is to see how many things you have in any one category, which can be a little scary, which is why we're here, because we probably have a lot of stuff. And this is now where we can start to make some decisions, because you're not working from, I don't know what I have here. You're working from, here's a pile of stuff. I can shop my own inventory. From all of these sets of luggage, which ones are my favorite? From all of these tools, how many screwdrivers do I need? And so this is where we can start to get a sense of, what do I want to hold on to? What do I maybe want to sell or give away or maybe pass along? Sometimes things just need to be trashed or recycled, and that is the answer. So just to recap, a before photo, very powerful. We're choosing one space. There may be other areas you want to get to. We can't do everything at once. Choosing one space, take that before photo and start to get a very general inventory. Now we need a game plan. What's the game plan? Now that you know what you have and some of the things that might be leaving, we're going to wave goodbye to those items. We can start to pull together a resource list. There were some questions that came in the chat and you're like, well, okay, this all sounds great, but then what do I do with the stuff? And the great news is, once we know what you have, we can start to identify what needs to go. So if you tell me, well, I was cleaning out that space and under a big pile of stuff, I found a piano. Well, what can I do with my piano if I'm not playing it? So these are the kinds of things we need to know so that then we can get you very specific resources. And as you might imagine, I've created a very long list for you. Of course, there are some valuable resources. They're in the book. We're going to talk about them tonight, but I also created a very long list that's on my personal website, which is jamienovak.com. It's about 150 things or so, which is why we're not going to go through them all together tonight, because that would just be the rest of the program and kind of boring. And you don't need them all, and you certainly don't need them all right now. But at jamienovak.com, you can find this very long list that I created for you that I'm always updating. So it's going to be current. So let's just take a quick peek at that. JamieNovak.com. It's in the chat in case you want to look. Right on the home page, there's a piece of note paper. When you click it, it takes you to all of the lists. So that's there for you anytime you need it. So we're creating a game plan. Now that we have a picture, we've got our before photo, we've got a little inventory of what we've got. We're starting to get a sense of what resources we might need. I need a place for tools to go, or artwork to go, or furniture that you thought you were going to refinish. Or is that just me? I always think like, oh, I'll refinish that. I have never refinished a piece of furniture. It sounds great. Like, then when it comes to like actually doing it, not so much. And I think we want to add in here a bit of a deadline. I think I work best under a deadline. How about you? Do you work best under a deadline where you're like, okay, I have to get this done by such and such a date? The challenge is no one's really coming to look at your spare room or your study or your basement. No one's really coming to look at it. So because we don't have that accountability of someone coming to look at it, we're on our own. Like, we have to do this. And the challenge with that is, being an adult, we have to do it. And if we find it hard to kind of get ourselves going to get this done and stick to a deadline, well, we can enforce a deadline. And the way that I think that works is scheduling an organization to come and pick things up. Because if you've scheduled them to come and pick up a few bags of things, guess what? You have to make a few bags of things. We don't want them to come for nothing. Another deadline would be scheduling a garage sale, probably with a neighbor, so that you can't just move the date forward and no one will know. Again, accountability, you're doing it together. So a deadline could look like an organization coming to pick things up. It could look like a garage sale or some other way. For example, if the town or county is having a hazardous waste day where you can bring things, or a shred it date where you can bring papers. These also would act as deadlines to make things happen. So we're grouping similar things together in our inventory. And what we're probably starting to recognize is that so many of the things that are hanging out in storage are simply postponed decisions. We just put off deciding. I'll put it there for now. I'll decide about it later. Maybe I need it. Maybe I don't. I'm not sure. Just in case, I'll put it here. We don't decide. And then all of a sudden, the cabinet door won't close. The shelves are overstuffed. We can't close the garage. We can't get our car into the garage, the attic, the basement. We're paying for storage. Can't see the top of our study area. It's a challenge. So now we have the strategy for solving this clutter challenge. There are a few things that are best stored in climate-controlled spaces, like the inside of your home. There are some things that just don't do well in storage, either because they'll be ruined, very good chance they'll be ruined, or they're potentially dangerous. For example, flammable items that are left out in the heat of a garage. Not a good scenario. So I'll run through a short list of things with you. And in case you're wondering, where should I store this? The best answer is probably climate controlled, or don't store it at all. So let's take a look at that very short list. And the first one is food and medication. Food, and so perishable foods and medication, they don't like extreme temperatures, fluctuations. They really do like to be, air conditioned, cooled, heated, just like you in your home. So food and medication, best not to be stored like extreme temperatures of an attic, humidity of a basement, garage. And of course, depending on the type of food it is, it could also attract pests, and we wouldn't want to do that either. Fabric, curtains, rugs, clothing, fabric furniture, even lampshades just don't tend to do well. And you may have already noticed this if you had some of these things stored and you went to get them and you're like, oh, this got ruined. If it's currently stored and it's still in okay condition, let's get it out of storage sooner rather than later. Fabric just tends to absorb smells and can get a little musty if it gets humid. It can get like a little scent to it that can be very hard to get out and sometimes impossible to get out. It can also fade under sunlight. It's, again, just not ideal for a variety of reasons. So fabric things like fabric lampshades and clothing, bedding, and carpets as well. So this is that idea of, if you're not using it, then why are we storing it? And sometimes we're storing it because we'll use it in another season. It's holiday decorations and things. But more times than not, we're just holding on to it because we paid good money, or it was free, it was a gift, we might use it. We might refinish that furniture. And I think the answer, for me, at least I know, is I won't. I wish I would. I think it would be fun, but I'm never going to do it. And if I am, I can get another piece of furniture and do it with that one. Electronics. Electronics is another category of things that just doesn't do well when it's out in storage. So most especially because storage areas tend to be a little more dusty than like inside a home where it's cleaned on a more regular basis. And electronics don't do well with dust. Dusting keyboards and little, ports and things. So that's a challenge. But then again, extreme temperatures, not ideal. The next one on our list is firewood. So firewood should not be stored in your home, and it also should be stored, if you do use firewood, stored away from touching your house. And that's just usually a pest situation, but we don't want firewood there. That's like firewood, candles, that's, kindling in the event of a fire, and we don't want anything flammable. So you're looking at like a polyurethane coat that maybe you used on something at one time. Probably best to discard it. It usually doesn't last well just for using purposes, but also just for safety purposes. We want to stay so long. Similar to fabric, books is another one on the list. Books is not a good category to store in storage. Again, musty, they get a little damp, they can get mildewy. Books, so either let's use them and enjoy them and read them, or pass them on to someone who will, and we'll have some more resources for you in just a minute. Finally, our category is going to wrap up with records, artwork, keepsakes, photographs. And if photographs is a challenge, we do hope to have you join us again October 3rd. So we meet the first Thursday of every month, and October 3rd is all about the photographs. 3 easy steps to solving the photographs. So records and artwork and keepsakes and photographs and toys. So again, you're thinking, okay, maybe, a child finished using it, or it's toys from, maybe if you have children and they're maybe grown, but you're waiting on grandchildren, maybe, right? So then you're like, oh, let me hold on to these. But again, the dust, the yellowing, they get brittle. And I think the biggest concern with saving things from one child to the next, or one generation of children to a next, is that there can be safety standards change and things can be recalled, and you wouldn't necessarily have known that. So I just, in general, not a big fan of saving that. Keepsake reason, for sure. But so Edith's wondering, well, what do I mean by keepsakes? I'm thinking things like, cake topper from a wedding. Look what happens to it in storage. It starts to look like this. It's not great, right? So, maybe it's little souvenirs, even figurines and things, and not so much that a figurine, like a porcelain figurine like this, is necessarily going to pick up a smell like a fabric would, but if they're breakable, the chances of them being broken in storage, I think, are pretty high, because boxes get moved around, things fall, heavier boxes get put on top, and it's just not ideal. So I'm glad that we clarified that. All right, so you might remember we started with our before photo. We just covered a short list of things that are best not stored. And of course, we can add to the list of things not to store the stuff you're not using, because someone else can use and love it and enjoy it. So how do we get it to them? Well, there are some options. So scheduling a pickup would be a great option if that is something that you can manage. So there's probably an organization nearby. We can look at a few of them. FreeCycle is another option. Does anyone use FreeCycle? Pop a Y in the chat if you use FreeCycle, if you'd like to. Never any pressure, but if you'd like to chime in, please do. FreeCycle is, I don't know for sure that it's the original, but I think it's one of the first, if not the first, sort of like a buy nothing group. There are other buy nothing groups. They're usually found on social media, like a Facebook. And it is what it sounds like. It's a buy nothing group. You do not take a tax deduction or a credit if that applies when you file taxes. This is you saying to someone in town, hey, I have this. Would you be interested? Broken or not? And I would just say it is broken or I suspect it to be broken, but someone that tinkers or needs a part from it or would scrap the metal like an old appliance, they can come and take it away. Now, this does typically require the person coming to you, which you may or may not be comfortable with. If you're not, don't use this resource. We can find other resources that you're more comfortable with. But if you have something large, oversized, we talked about pianos, above ground swimming pools, large appliances, or anything, even down to the teeniest tiny thing like a pack of stickers left over from a birthday party to just about anything else. It's sort of like if you've ever seen, depending on your space, if you're like in a home and you can put things curbside that say free to a good home, it's kind of like that, but it's allowing you to sort of broadcast this ad, if you will. You don't have to take a picture or anything. You could just say what it is. And free cycle is an option. And then there's the other buy nothing groups. You can have a no sale garage sale, which would just entail putting the things out as if you were having a rummage or a tag sale, a garage sale, but then everything's free or everything's $1. And then it just goes, right? So that someone's coming in their car or their truck, they can cart it away and maybe you make a few dollars, but we know that it goes to someone who will use and love it and enjoy it. And it's out of your house, which is potentially the best part of the whole thing. So if you buy nothing groups, I would suggest a treasure box. We did talk about keepsakes, and there's probably a good chance you're going to come across a concert t-shirt or a playbill or a ticket stub or letters or some other things that just bring you back to a special time in life. People, place, events, things, and a little treasure box, whether it's a little plastic tub or some sort of a basket with a lid, it would allow you to put all these things together so that they're grouped together, but that it's, not scattered, and maybe bring it into the house. In just a minute, we're going to talk about how to maintain all of our hard work once we've sort of got a corner cleared out and then half the space cleared out and then hopefully the whole space cleared out. How do we maintain it? And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. I love that a few of you are sharing some other resources with us. And Joanne says in the chat, when a friend sells something for pickup, they meet in the police station's parking lot for safety. And I love that. And Yolanda says, just go ahead and wear the concert t-shirts. And I'm with you, Yolanda. Absolutely. Wear the stuff, use it, enjoy it. That's what it's there for. Absolutely. I could not agree more. So sometimes we save things because we don't want to use them up. We don't want to damage them, but that's what they're there for. So use it, love it, and enjoy it. That's one of my favorite things. And I love that you said that. Well, a couple of other resources for you. And the next one is Staples or Best Buy stores. So Staples, the office store, or Best Buy, they both accept consumer electronics for recycling all year round. So generally you can bring in like 7 things per person per day. So that would be one, option. Now, if it's something that you can carry on your own, generally there's no charge. Sometimes if it's oversized like a gigantic television, I would certainly call first to ensure that they take it. And if they do, there may be a small fee, but there may not be. It just depends. They will take laminators and burnt out paper shredders. They'll take coffee makers and scanners, VCRs and fax machines. They'll take telephone systems, video games, webcams, keyboards, label makers, computers. I mean, the list is pretty endless. And so it's a long list of things, Best Buy and Staples stores. And it's 7 items per consumer per day. And there's typically not a charge for things that you can carry in like on your own. And then, if you've got like an old coffee maker that's not working any longer, that would be great. Now, Anne's reminding us that if you have enough concert t-shirts, it feels like we've really struck a chord with the concert t-shirts. Everyone has them, right? They're so fun. Making a quilt out of them. But then if you're like, but Anne, I don't know how to quilt. Good news. When we cover our Attic Treasures program, and we do hope you'll come back for that one, That's going to be on August 1st. We're going to cover sentimentality and being attached to things, and absolutely, if you don't quilt, could someone quilt for you, and what would that look like? And I love that that Anne mentioned that. So absolutely. Who thinks that when they're going through their storage space, they might find figurines or candlesticks, candy dishes, pocket watches, collectibles, Lenox and Yardro, and sets of dishes, all sorts of things? Well, if you think that you're going to find some of those items, you can take a look at replacements.com. Their phone number is 1-800-REPLACE. 1-800-REPLACE, and their website is www.replacements, with an S, replacements.com. And so when you get there, you can send them a picture of your item or items. So whether it's, specialty glassware or shot glasses or whatever it is that you have that they sell, goblets and crystal decanters and all sorts of things, you can send them a picture. Flatware, silverware, sterling silver, plated silver, and they will help you identify it. So they will help you identify it. And then once they identify it, if they want to buy it from you, they will go ahead and they will offer you the price. So that would be an option. And that would be something you could see if you liked their price. And if so, then it would be very easy to just get the items to them. If you're just looking to identify it and see what it might be worth, that would be an option as well. I love that so many of you are sharing ideas and suggestions in the chat. If you have something, someone else is saying, maybe this is what you can do with it. Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Leslie, it's going to take us a little too much off topic to go into paperwork, but I would say that if you're taking your paperwork to a shred event, it's typically going through a truck and there's closed circuit cameras, so you can actually watch it go through the truck. So I would look for that. That would be a great option. So yay. Absolutely. Donation kind of always wins, right? That's a great thing to do. But sometimes, like some of my little shops can't take certain things at certain times of year. So if you're looking for another resource, I want to tell you about givebackbox.com. Give, Give, back, BACK, box, BOX. Givebackbox.com. Now, this is a newer resource, but it allows you to fill a box. So it's your cardboard mailing box, just about any size. I wouldn't go too big because then it gets too heavy. You're not paying the shipping anyway, but I wouldn't go too big. It just gets too heavy. So I would go with a smaller box, and you're going to want to go to www.givebackbox.com. That's what that looks like, givebackbox.com. And when you get there, you're going to have a few choices. The first choice, and you'll see it here, it says drop off at any Kohl's. So the Kohl's department store. You can bring your box into Kohl's, backed by like customer service and Amazon returns. They have Give Back Box. They can print the postage paid label. You don't pay for this. And they will attach it. So you put the stuff in the box. What can you put in the box? I mean, what can't you put in the box? You can put in plush toys and office supplies, extra 3-ring binders. You can put in books and linens and kitchen items and figurines and all sorts of stuff. Clothing for sure, shoes, yes. So right into your box, then you tape the box closed for mailing. Then you bring the box to Kohl's. They'll print the postage paid mailing label. You don't pay for postage. They will give you a receipt for tax deduction if you need one. And off the box goes. What they say happens here when you read the fine print is that these large companies and corporations have warehouses. Warehouses that they can give some of the space to the items that we're donating. And then they are able to distribute it to the local community. I mean, my little, thrift stores and things in town, they can't take things off season. None of them take plush animals. So this one does. So that's option 1 if you wanted to bring your box or boxes into Kohl's. Option 2 is the red heart and cardboard box. And this is where when you click it, it's going to let you print the postage paid label. And then it will also go ahead and give you the receipt for tax deduction should you want one. If you choose for me, when it says choose for me, because you want to choose which company you're going to partner with, they're going to ask you to pay the $15 in shipping, which you could, but if you didn't want to, you'll want to either choose the Kohl's option or the choose for me option. But if you choose, they're going to ask you to pay the $15. So sometimes what happens is after a program like this, I'll get a few emails of someone saying, but you said it was free and it's not. I clicked here. So just to clarify, either Kohl's or the Red Heart will get you the free option and the receipt for tax deduction should you want one. And there you go. So sometimes there's some things that need to go to a new space so someone could use and love them, but we're not quite sure what to do with them, and givebackbox.com might just be the answer. So in a little bit, we're going to sort of open it up for a more general Q&A. And if there's any particular item that you're hoping to hear about, please do let us know. So chat's open. The Q&A feature is also open. So that would be helpful if you wanted to, pop a question in there. And this way, if you're like, but I need a specific resource or, that sort of a thing, that would be great. All right. So let's just recap. It's already been hopefully a time where you've got some takeaways and some ideas and a strategy. And as we sort of do a little recap, I'll invite you to consider maybe creating your own little plan, a little roadmap, a little, success list, if you will, where, these ideas might sound great when you sort of string them all together and take action, but what does it look like for you, right? All these ideas across the board could be really great, but what does it look like for you? So while we go ahead and take a look at this, let's see if you can choose one area. And of that one area, we're going to go ahead and take a look at sort of some of the categories we might find. Don't forget about that before photo. So what space are you choosing? You might want to actually write this on a piece of paper. What space would you like to work on first? And then when would you like to take that before photo? You might want to take the before photo now or right after the program. Then we're going to take a little inventory, just kind of start to see what's there, start to formulate a little bit of a plan. We're going to look for some resources based on what you find. So if you find a bunch of crafting supplies, that would probably be a different resource than if you found, some figurines that you might want to appraise through something like replacements.com. And then we've got our game plan. We've got to get it on your calendar. Your calendar fills up so fast, doesn't it? I mean, look, it's already the 6th of June. So maybe go ahead and start to block out some time, like little appointments with yourself, little dates, little organizing sessions. And that could look like wrapping it around a habit that you already have going. So let's say, if you go to a laundromat, this probably won't work nearly as well. But if you do your laundry at home, you're probably already in the habit of doing the laundry at least once a week, maybe more. Laundry goes in, you've got 20 to 40 minutes maybe of time. What if that's your declutter time? Buzzer goes off, laundry's done. You feel like doing a little more decluttering? Well, you could do it while you've got the dryer going, or stop for the day and come back another time. Now, if you go to a laundromat, you won't be home, so that probably won't work as well, but you can find another habit that you already have going. Maybe there's a favorite show you watch on a particular day, 30 minutes before the show, or 30 minutes after the show. Maybe you're going to find a little declutter buddy, a neighbor, a coworker, a family member, a friend, and you'll call each other. 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. It's time. What are you working on? This is what I'm working on. Okay, let's go do it. Then we call each other back, share successes. If you live close enough, you can get together, drop things off. And again, what happens with that deadline or that accountability partner? Things change. If I'm just here doing my own thing, no one's going to really know if I don't follow through. I mean, I'll know, but no one else will know. To ensure success, sometimes that accountability partner and that deadline is just what we need. We know what we're not going to store in storage just to keep things safe. Absolutely. Now, there are some great questions coming into the chat. We're going to circle over to those in just a moment. Before we do, as we're working, we want to keep the space that we've gone through tidy. And once we've finished the space, whether it's a closet, a room, a basement, attic, garage, or we've gotten out of a storage unit, we want to maintain so that things don't go back. So what does that look like? Well, it looks different for each and every one of us. I think across the board, a new guideline is shop at home first. Shop at home first. And what that allows us to do is anything that's in our cart for online shopping, anything that's on our shopping list, we can shop at home. Just take a look, see what you've got. Maybe you actually own it, or you own something that you can use instead. If not, can you borrow it from the library? And then if not, maybe we then still buy it. I just borrowed a bundt pan from a neighbor. So I have to make a bundt cake. And it wasn't that long ago that I gave away my bundt pan because I'm like, I never make a bundt cake. And now my sister wants a bundt cake. I'm like, oh man, the pan. So my library doesn't lend cake pans. I know some libraries do, but my neighbor had one. So I don't have to buy it, use it once, and then store it, right? Because I paid good money for it. Maybe I'll use it again, all those sorts of things. All right, so shop at home first is a great strategy. The other one is to really look at the areas on a seasonal basis. Storage areas tend to just have things pile up in them, and then until it's really overflowing, we don't usually go through it. So on a seasonal basis, if you can just take a peek, see what needs to go out. Maybe it's just tidying things, putting them back in bins. You know, sometimes it just gets a little messy. You're going to keep everything, but it's just a little messy. And then we work on that. So seasonally is a good goal as well, I think. And then shop at home first is a great one. So you're starting to put your little plan together. Do you kind of have a sense of what maybe you'll do first? And not only what you'll do first, but when you'll do it. So I think a great formula for success is what plus when equals win. What are you going to do? Plus when are you going to do it? And that will equal a win. Versus, oh, I guess I'll get around to it sometime, maybe this summer, probably by the fall, possibly. I think I'll get to it. I don't know if that's as successful as tonight I'm taking my before photo, and tomorrow for 30 minutes before my show comes on at 7 o'clock, I'm just going to see and take a look at what we have. Like that's the recipe, right? That's the recipe for success. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the chat. I'm going to scroll back just a bit because some awesome questions have come in, and it's really helpful if you use the Q&A feature because then I absolutely cannot overlook it. Let's start to answer a few questions, and then hopefully you're going to share your plan with us in the chat. All right, let's take a look at Barbara, who says, my challenge is gifts that people have given me that I don't use. I feel guilty about getting rid of them. Oh my gosh. Who can really relate to what Barbara shared as her question? Gifts that people have given me that I don't use, but I feel guilty about getting rid of them. Oh, Barbara, yes. Okay, so a couple of thoughts here. The person that gave you a gift cares enough about you as a friend or family member to give you a gift. And I don't think that that person would want you to feel burdened by a gift. Sometimes I've said to my sister, like, oh, I'm, finally going to donate this. And she's like, you still have that? So I think sometimes, we can put maybe some more importance on it. I know our friends and family are well-meaning in giving us gifts. You could just simply say, let's gift each other experiences going forward so that we're not burdened by these, gifts. The other piece to this is you can snap a photo of it, keep the photo, but not the actual item. I feel more guilty for keeping something I'm not using because I'm preventing the item from being used by someone who would use and love it. So I sort of tip the scales on the guilt level there, and I feel bad for keeping it. And then finally, when you think of a gift, the way I sort of interpret a gift is that the person has a caring, loving feeling towards you, and the item is only the physical representation of that. The gift is that they thought of you, made something, spent money on you, and gave you something. But it's only the physical item is the representation of the love. And so we're not giving the love away, if that makes sense. So I hope that helps. The guilt is real across the board. The guilt is real. And when we have our sentimental program, which is a reminder that will be on August 1st, this is really something we'll dive into a little bit more. It's such a problem for a lot of us. And I say that because it's a problem for me. So we're always struggling. I love it. Good ideas. Great question. Sue says, are there any suggestions for donating sporting goods? Oh, her late husband had a lot of scuba equipment and fishing gear to rehome. Oh gosh, Sue. So yeah, that's such a great question. And again, this is the stuff that just doesn't last, right? You think of maybe even, you mentioned scuba equipment, which made me think of a fish tank. Fish tanks, the caulking on fish tanks gets dry rot. And the minute you go to put water in it, it just comes out the sides because that stuff's just not meant to last. So I love that you're thinking of maybe sharing this for someone to use and love it before it goes bad, right? And can't be used by someone. So, it just depends how much time and effort you want to put towards the rehoming of things, right? And so, of course, if you live near water and there's people that are fishing on the weekend, if you just load the stuff up in your trunk and you say, hey, does anyone want this? I'm guessing there'd be a lot of takers. And I kind of like that if you feel safe doing it. Of course, we'd never want to do it where you felt uncomfortable. But I would say, I kind of love that because I get to see the person who's going to take it versus I like donating things, but I don't ever get to meet them. So that's kind of fun. Scuba equipment, I'm guessing there's probably like a YMCA or some tower. Like, where would you go near you to get certified to be able to dive, right? To scuba dive, because they're going to be the person. So Sue's specifically asking about scuba equipment and fishing gear, but this is true for all the different specialty things we might have. I'm thinking tools, like we had a jack to jack up a car. I just asked the local mechanic. We had a bunch of lawn care items. And there was a gentleman who had a little sign on the side of his truck. And he's like, and it was like J&J Landscaping. And I'm like, do you want any of this stuff? And he was thrilled. So sometimes you can make that connection. I hope that helps. Of course, FreeCycle would be another great option. So you list the items on FreeCycle, and that could be something as well. So I hope they all find new homes. Oh, great question. Ishi says, I'm downsizing from a large house to an apartment. I'd like to donate clothing to churches. Is there any organization that will pick up? Oh, yes, absolutely. So let's take a look at some of those. Hang on. Pickupplease.org. I'll pop it in the chat for you. Pickupplease.org. And also you can always look at jamienovak.com. I've got that full list for you. Diane reminds us about Play It Again sports stores. And yes, donations and might buy it again, scuba equipment. That was a great point as well. Sue, you're welcome. And then some stores do consign sports equipment. So again, I love all your suggestions. Keep them coming. This is fantastic. Here's the thing. You identify the item, figure out what's the easiest and the way that feels best to you, and then take action. Because I can almost get overwhelmed by all the things I could do with it, and then I don't do anything because I'm like, well, I could do this, but I could do that. But then I could do this, but someone said that. And then I'm like, no, I just need someone to come and pick it up. Like that's, kind of the thing. So Pick Up Please is a good one. So we can start there with that one. Joanne says in the chat, after we cleaned out my parents' home following their deaths, my sibling asked me to keep all the boxes of keepsakes since I had space. I'm renovating that room into usable space. How do I handle the keepsakes and keep the siblings happy? Oh my gosh, Joanne, it's such a great question. And I don't want to keep you waiting until August 1st when we have our keepsakes class. And of course, keepsakes is part of cleaning out storage. So we certainly should address it tonight. It's a wonderful question. And I'd say for Joanne, and probably so many of us that have things like, I know old concert t-shirts can be made into a quilt. I'm just saying there might be some other things. So your first stuffed animal or a special blanket or who knows what we have, taking photos can be a great option. So Joanne, I would say maybe just, connect with your siblings, maybe take some beautiful photos of these things. You could upload the photos to one of the photo bookmaking companies like Shutterfly or Snapfish, and everyone gets a book of beautiful keepsakes. You can send them the pictures and let them shop from the pictures. I'm renovating the room by this date. Here's the deadline. These items need to go. Here are the pictures. Do you want any of the actual items, or maybe the pictures are enough? And so I think, we want to sort of keep that relationship and all those relationships good, but also it's not fair, just because you sort of have the space that you become the storage unit. And again, when it's sitting in storage, no one's using and loving it, and it's continuing to degrade. So I think sometimes it's, yes, I need my space back, but also I started to look at some of this stuff. It's not looking great. Either let's start using it, let's take some pictures, and honestly, the picture might just be enough. So I hope that helps. We've got another great question coming in on, oh, Catherine, I will repeat those for you and I'll put them in chat. How do I deal with a spouse who thinks I should spend a short time on a big mess of storage and just throw it all away? As a result, I lose motivation to clear things out, knowing I can't do it in an hour or two and I can't toss everything. Oh my goodness. What a wonderful question. I think this sort of sums up almost the entire program, right? Whether it's a spouse or that we feel we should be moving faster, or how did we let it get this far? We should have dealt with it sooner. Doesn't matter. It can almost sort of feel hopeless. And I love that you really recognize that we can lose motivation. Absolutely. So, we want our partner, spouse, person, and ourselves to just be kind to ourselves. Sometimes we can speak very harshly to ourselves and think we should be farther along. I think what might help here is that we have blocks of time where we see things changing. We have deadlines with things going out, and there's sort of a plan. So by this date, I would like to be halfway through this whole project. By this date, I'd like to be totally done with this project. And I would appreciate either encouragement or just simply no comment, because it's not helpful. I have my process, you have yours, and it's two like totally different mindsets. We definitely can appreciate someone who maybe doesn't have attachments to stuff and can make faster decisions and go, and just, if I need it, I'll rebuy it, and they're fine with that. And then there's sort of almost the other side of the spectrum that's like, nope, I want to look through it. I want to have another moment with it. I want to process it. I want to relive the memory. It was a gift. I need to see it again. I might want to take a picture, and then I'm willing to make a process. So I think that before and after photo could really be helpful, because if there is a concern about how quickly or slowly someone may be moving, you can say, but here's the before photo and look what we've done. So I hope that helps. It can be so frustrating. And maybe something big to start with so that they see like a big change quickly that is motivating to you, and then maybe to them as well. So I know it almost becomes like part therapy, part organizing. It's always a bit of a blend. I'm not qualified in that area, but I think it sometimes borders on that. Leslie says, what do we do with an old organ? Oh, I would think of a music store, a senior center, maybe a local house of worship. Old mink stoles, you can donate them. Givebackbox.com is one. Vintage stores, depending on the condition that they're in, vintage stores might be interested. And you can check with like a local fur storage place, because they're the ones that would have it. You can also check with a local tailor, because sometimes they can, use it as fur trim and things. So, yeah. And then it looks like a few of us are having a partner that just is a keeper of everything or a tosser of everything. So we've sort of got both ends of the spectrum there. So a lot of it is, we've got this much space, you can have this whole shelf, put whatever you'd like, but once it's past the shelf, like then that's common space, and we have to not have stuff there. Like that doesn't work for both of us. There was a question about the photo books that I mentioned. I'm going to put that into chat. Shutterfly is one, and that is like the shutter of a camera and then fly like butterfly. Snapfish is another. Those are just the two that I've used personally. But then it looks like we had a recommendation from Sue, who says Photo Book America does a great job. I'll have to look that one out because I don't know. Sherry's got a great question for us. It's the heirloomist, and this is new for me, so I always love learning something new. So thank you for that. Keepsakes professionally photographed as a unique gift. Oh, that's lovely. Norma, like me, has used Shutterfly, and they always do have sales. Yes. And Janet says, I definitely get it. A person like that can be such a demotivator for sure. And the really interesting thing about, a person that maybe is more willing to let things go, they also still do usually have some stuff. It's just easier for them to see your stuff and then their stuff, not so much. Sometimes, and not always, sometimes working together to say, here's a bag. We're going to set a timer for 10 minutes. We're each going to look for 10 things to put in the bag before the 10 minutes is up. And then we're going to go for a walk, watch our show, have ice cream. So they see you working with them, and it sort of brings you together versus maybe farther apart. But that doesn't always work. It's just one suggestion. Let's see. Stage theaters, yes, for props. Yolanda, absolutely. So many of the things we're talking about, think of your community playhouse. Absolutely. These are great for props. So many of the items. And then if you get tickets to the show, then you get to, see your items again, which is kind of fun. All right, let's take a quick peek. I just want to make sure. Oh, Simple Recycle picks up every Tuesday, Janet says. Simple Recycle picks up every Tuesday. Thank you for that one. This is great. Thank you so much for sharing resources. All right. Oh, whoa, what a good question. Joyce says, what happens if there are items which should have been in this room in the first place thrown into other rooms? Should we inventory the other rooms first and place them in the proper room before we start organizing? Oh no, Joyce, don't do that. I think that is a recipe for disaster. I mean, you could, and I certainly understand why that would have come to mind because we sort of said group like together, right? So, but what I could imagine happening and what I would do is I would go from every room in the house to try to gather all the things that go together. I'd make a mess everywhere and nothing would look any better and I'd be exhausted. So I would really encourage everyone, including Joyce, and it's such a great clarifying question. So thank you. I would stay in this space where you are. The one closet, the one area of a one room, one space in an attic basement. If you can't work in the attic basement garage because it's not so fun to work there, lighting's dim, it's hot, it's cold, bring one box of things in. One box gets completely done, and then we go get another box. You don't always have to work in the storage space. But I would say, yeah, don't. What we want to do is make sense of the one space first. And then what happens, Joyce, is let's say we go through holiday decor and we get down to, maybe you're a big person, you're really big on putting door wreaths up, right? And so you've got a bunch of them. So then we're going to say, I'm going to go down to one bin of wreaths, spring and seasonal and this holiday and all the things. And then you're like, oh, but wait, there's one more in the other room. Don't go get it now, right? Because then we've lost you for this project. But when we go to that space, when this space is done, and we find one more to now put away properly, with the others, you're like, oh, but I like this one better. Then this one comes out, this one gets stored. So a great strategy across the board is to decide how much space from your home, apartment, townhome, condo, how much space do you want to give up to this particular category? One bin, one shelf, one container, sort into it. If you want something else and it doesn't fit, we don't get another bin, something has to go. So it's sort of done by space, but not so much by how many. So that's really helpful. Diane says the high school art department was happy to take tubes of paint, canvas rolls, brushes, frames. I mean, I love that. Diane, absolutely. Supporting our educators with things like that. Love it. Catherine says, emptying a family home here. The first lesson learned, check with any nonprofit to see what they accept before donating. Absolutely, Catherine, you're so spot on. So very early on in our time together this evening, one of the things we talked about was that game plan. Know what you have inventory wise, and then find the resource to match up to it. But if you don't know what you have, then we end up just moving things around because now we know we have it because we found it, but we don't know what to do with it. So creating that personalized list, I think, is really helpful. All right, let's take a pick here. A little peek, Catherine. Yep. Again, costume jewelry is almost always purchased by consignment shops outright. The challenge is there aren't as many consignment shops as there used to be, but they don't often consign costume jewelry. They usually buy it outright. Not a guarantee, but they usually will. So that's a good one too. Paintings and an older organ. So again, house of worship, paintings. Think of any like a senior center, or that's what I did with like all my lace tablecloths. That could be an option. So someplace that might not have a budget for the paintings, and then, it could be lovely for them. And everyone kind of wins. Diana wants to know, how many boxes can you send to givebackbox.com? I haven't hit a limit yet. So you can just keep printing the labels, the postage paid labels. I mean, if you're taking them to Kohl's, or if you print the label at home, you're taking them to the post office, or you're scheduling a post office pickup, or you're taking them into Kohl's. So it's more so like, how many can you fit, I guess. But again, Diana, I was like, let me fill 6 boxes. And then I didn't fill any because I set myself up to be overwhelmed. So I did 1 box, then I did 1 more. So I think 1 at a time, but I haven't hit a limit yet. So I hope that helps. All right, let's see. Yes. All right. I think we have reached the top of the list. A vintage sewing machine that comes in a cabinet. Ooh, yeah. Heavy, right? Heavy, maybe heavy. I mean, if you just want to give it away, free cycle, there's probably someone that would value it. Again, I don't know if you're comfortable having someone come into your house. I wouldn't ever be alone. All the things. You always want to put your safety first. You could get it out to the front and someone could come and pick it up. Sewing machines. It's just not the kind of thing that you could really sell so much easily, because then like how you can't really ship it, especially if it's in a cabinet. And oftentimes those sewing machines don't tend to have a lot of resale value, but you could check. I hope that helps. I would probably free cycle it. Barbara says, is there an easy way to recycle clothes that are not wearable? Oh, absolutely. So H&M clothing stores, H&M clothing stores take bags of textile recycling. Levi's stores take jeans for recycling. Any of those bins that you see like in a parking lot that have usually like a donate clothes here sign, most of those clothes that go into those bins, they're for-profit companies and they just shred the clothing. So that would be for non-wearable clothing. That would be great. So that would be an option. You can check with your Department of Public Works. Sometimes they have sort of a textile recycling opportunity. So that could be something as well. And I mean, I would say too, depending on what it is, towels, sets of sheets, sweatshirts, terry cloth, the local Humane Society, the volunteers are cleaning all the time. And so that's a lot of them. And Cynthia reminds us that textile recycling, Simple Recycle will pick up. And that is, Massachusetts does require our textile recycling, which is awesome. So Cynthia, there you go. Wonderful. I cannot believe we are coming to the end of our time together, and I would very much appreciate it. The library has asked if you'd like to, and it's always optional, but in the chat, you will see an opportunity to do a little program evaluation. So this isn't anything that I get to see your name. You actually don't put your name. So if you'd like to, I think it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 6 questions. And so if you'd be so kind to take a little moment, again, it's always optional, but if you'd like to, go ahead and please do give us your feedback on this program. And that's also where you can suggest other programs. So if it's something that I can present or anyone else, we would love to hear about what you'd like to hear about. We're going to have to wrap our time. We're an hour, and that's what we promised you. So I want to let you go before you lose your momentum. And maybe you're going to go take that before photo and get started. And then when you come back next month, you can tell us what you've accomplished. So this can be your accountability partner. And I'm here cheering you on. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a lovely month. We'll see you back on the 11th. Enjoy your holiday, and let's go make some things happen. So grab that before photo and let's start tidying up, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you so much if you took the little evaluation form for us. So thank you if you did that for us. And we'll see you next month. All your lovely comments. Oh, I'm so glad we're inspired. Let's go do this. We know the steps now. See you, everyone. Take good care. Bye-bye now.